Hey everyone, welcome back. If you recall, I have commented several times on how many times I've installed and uninstalled the heater. Well, it's out again so that I can get the venting or the heat vents on it. So got it on the bench, and the kit comes with these aluminum ducting, and it's okay. It wasn't my favorite, just simply because the way it gets installed is, you cut the hose to a certain length, and that's not really documented. And then you use zip ties to tie it on there. I found that the hose just didn't stay on very well, so I used some self-tapping screws to hold them in place. One thing that I have to do is, so if you look at that highlighted area there, the heating on the standard kit doesn't reach to the back if you use the side channels. So the way a lot of people are getting around that is to run ducting down the middle. Well, the problem is then you lose some heat on the floor, or you lose some heat through the vents that point at you. So what I came up with was I needed to build another set of tubing, and I had some scrap sheet of a damaged piece, and this has been helpful since I've been building. And I just basically made some new ducting, a new ducting T valve that allows me to keep both the vents up front, the vents down the sides, and the vents on the floor. So, the idea is that if it's cold air coming down the back there, you just shut the valves off in the back, and then the heat will come through the floor vents, which makes sense. Heat rises. I mean, that's a good way to do it. But if you also needed to have some venting just in flight, you don't sacrifice that part as part of this process. So through the process of physically using the screws, I also did use some silicone to hold them in place, just so that I didn't have any leaking around the base of the duct attach point. And the NACA duct, or the scat tubing that's there, is the part that I was going to run down the center channel there, and it's a tight fit. So between the fuel selector location, the new fuel selector location isn't that I discussed in the previous video, and the scat tubing, it's each got its own place, but there's not much room for anything else. The tube that's there on the left that kind of points up and around, that goes to the defrost on the window. I've got the ductwork that comes down there on the lower left-hand side, and that's where the T valve would be in place. And then I've got the other one that is going to go for the vents on the side. And that's the valve that I made there. The white pieces is just some PVC that I got at the store. It allows for that venting to be routed around, pointed a little bit more forward. I get cold, so for me this is just a personal thing that I don't like my feet getting cold, and they're the first thing to get cold. So I definitely want to have that heat going to the floor. Um, the drawings on this, or the pictures that they include in the diagrams, are very interesting to say the least. Um, I spent a couple of days just kind of fiddling around trying to figure out exactly how this goes together, because effectively you have the 3-inch opening that is in my left hand there with the reducer valve, or the reducer cup that goes on it, and then after that there's two other points that get connected, but there's only one line coming to it. So it's just kind of weird how it all goes together. It took a lot of work with it to try to figure it out. And then that aluminum ducting that is included with the kit, it's just I mean, it fits, but it's not easy. And actually this is the section I was talking about there. The arrow that's pointing, that's a different kit version. I don't have that shutoff valve. It's actually within the 3-inch tube, and I've got a way to. I'm just gonna get a remote cable control that I'm gonna put under the instrument panel to open and close the vent as I need it. There's the instrument panel that I've got doesn't have the valve doors on it. It's totally fine. I mean, those valves doors are only going to open and close. I would think occasionally. I could be wrong, but I'm going to put them in a spot that they're easily accessible, but they're not totally visible. Should be pretty straightforward. I'm not terribly worried about that aspect of things. So you got to be careful. I mean, that aluminum bends, and once it bends, it's not real useful. I did put the side skins in there just to get an idea of how high I needed to have that T valve in the center there, and also to kind of start getting an idea of how things are going to go together with the fuel selector valve. So it's back to, putting stuff together and taking stuff apart. I needed to get the backer, or that piece that comes from Midwest is a strengthening plate that goes on to the I don't know what they call it, but the part that comes with the sling kit that the instrument panel would normally go against. And then once I got that done, then I needed to get it matched up with the part that comes with the kit. So drill the holes, rivet it out, clean the holes up, rivet it out, and get it all put together. So it's all going, that part seemed to come together pretty well, but it's trying to figure out the routing on the hoses that just is a real pain. And then that's the instrument tray that's in there. One of the other things that I ran into was, and if you use the Midwest panel, they talk about providing some rigidity to the center of that tray, and that is done through a piece of angle aluminum that goes from the floor of the airplane up through the panel itself, or up to that tray itself. And that's what it looks like. That arrow there is where another person had done this, and they ended that vertical support at that angled brace, or the angled fuel selector. I don't want to risk that there's going to be some flex in that fuel selector panel. It probably isn't going to be, but what I wound up doing was just carving a little bit of an angle, or a slot open, so that the angle iron stayed complete top to bottom, and reaches all the way to the floor there on the airplane. It actually came together, I think, pretty well. The only problem I can see running into now is that the fuel valves may interfere with that, but I've got a way to handle that. So, of course, after fiddling around with the heater and the aluminum ducts, I just was tired of messing with that. So I decided, well, hold on a second. So this is where I was working on the support braces and just getting the angle iron and the other attachment points mounted. So I kind of have a clear path from the instrumentation side. At least I think I do at this point in time. But I got to get the ducting work squared away before I get too far down the road on that. Because with that tray in place, it gets really, really tight in there, and there's not a lot of room to wiggle around with it. And then of course I haven't physically attached all the fuel lines, because I'm waiting on the parts. And when I found out it was going to be like 20 weeks, it's like, okay, I'm going to have to actually go forward with that. My concern is I just don't want to have any leaks in the fuel line. The other thing that I had to figure out was because I'm using the Behringer system for the brakes, that's the parking brake in my hand there. It's non-standard from what the typical sling kit is, and I'm just checking for the flow there. So I've got to make a different mount for that. And lastly, I added a sheathing over the rudder cables, because I want to protect those as much as I can. That's all for now. I should have some more coming up soon. It takes me a little while to put these together, so that's what the delay is. But I'll try to be better about keeping these updated. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Thanks very much. Bye.